Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. We are live this week as we talk international football, the Rovers players out on loan, and of course the mailbag, which has gone pretty full. Mark, how was your week without Rovers?
Pretty boring, in it. Let's be honest. International football's not for us, I don't think. But it's been and gone now, and I'm looking forward to Pompey.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't watch a minute of the England game. I'm not even sure I really caught any highlights. I don't know what it is with international football. It just doesn't really do it for me anymore. I don't know whether it's because I feel like I'm not allowed to be patriotic and so on. And it does feel a bit of a contradiction when you're supposed to hate these players when they're in their club shirts and then put them in an England shirt. We're supposed to love them. Do you have any thoughts on why international football just doesn't seem to have its drive anymore?
I mean, it massively has it for me when we're doing, when we've got the Euros, we've got a World Cup, but I just find that, let's be honest, it's a rebranded friendly, the Nations League. You've got 9 players, 10 in the end that pulled out? Says it all. It's just not a priority, is it? And it feels like a friendly game. It doesn't feel competitive.
No, it's just weird. It's just a weird feeling. Like I said, when it gets to the international tournaments, I'm all for it. When we talked about it in the past, I'll watch anything as long as it's in a Euros or a full World Cup. But yeah, I just can't get behind it. I don't know whether it's because, Rovers haven't got any players sneaking in, but it's not like we've always had this plethora of players in the England national side, is it? It's one of those things where we looked forward to it because we were a bit younger, but now I'm a bit older. I haven't got much time to watch all the extras with football, with watching Rovers week in, week out. And obviously we are back to Rovers this week and Portsmouth. We've got them at home. Any thoughts on this international break and whether we're going to come out firing, or are you a little bit worried?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm worried. I'm a little bit concerned about Yuki. He doesn't play till tomorrow. Is it 12 o'clock tomorrow? So last time he came back, I think I described him as looking like he was still jet lagged. So that's a concern because I thought he played really well last time out. The players have obviously had 2 weeks on the training round. In theory, we know they haven't. There's been some conflicting YouTube stuff put out there. So Rovers have put loads of training stuff and content, but then you're seeing the players at the same time as sharing that, showing that they're on. I think Buckley's been to Reykjavik or Iceland, obviously the same place, but you know what I mean. You've had players getting some sun, you've had whatever. So they're obviously not been on the training ground for 2 weeks, which I don't mind. I think some of them needed a bit of a rest. But going into it on the back of that good performance against Stoke, but then the 3 points at Cardiff and a good performance, I'm looking forward to it. I think we need the 3 points against Portsmouth, though, just to continue that momentum.
Yeah, I felt like we needed this international break. We haven't rotated much. We've talked about that word rotation quite a bit, and it's a little bit frustrating that we managed to get, plug some holes in the transfer, but then we come to this and it just kind of was just playing the same players, and they needed that break, didn't they? And yeah. I think this one did come at the right time. It really did.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned in the last one that this particular international break usually is horrific for us. So the last couple of years there've been derby games previous to this. We've had really poor performances and we've stewed out for 2 weeks, and this tends to then be a sticky period for us, followed by a quite considerable decline. So the fact that we've got the win, I'm pinning my hopes on that. No, we've had the decline, and that's it. Now we're going in one direction, and that is obviously to the Premier League.
Well, exactly, and we're coming up against Portsmouth at a second from bottom, and they're not exactly in the best of form. It could have come at a good time to them to have this break and sort themselves out and come against us. But the fact that we are at home, they've got that long drive, as they say. As long as we make it not a nice place to be for them, I'm hoping that we do come in and get that win. I still can't see us having that much rotation with the players that we've got. I mean, we're not meant to have that many players out now. People are meant to be back. I'm hoping that Siggy's recovered from whatever he had and that we can start seeing him. I just hope that over these last few days they haven't been pressed too much, and that they have had the opportunity to have a rest and sort themselves out and prepare themselves for another run of fixtures, especially coming across this period now. And crazily to talk that we're into the Christmas period already, but it does feel like we're now coming into that period where it's going to be constant game after game after game, and we're going to have to rely on a lot of these players that have been overused for us. Like we've talked about Hedges, he's a player that shouldn't be playing every game. We've got aging defenders that can't play every game, and now we've got some long-term injuries with Carter and Wharton. I think we are going to struggle a little bit with depth until the window where hopefully we'll start seeing players coming in, and we'll wait and see on that one. But I just hope that we kick off and with a good performance, and that we get this win, because like you said, we've come out of them in the past and it's not been great. And I think this is an important period now.
Massive. And probably more so considering the games that come up after it. So we've got Portsmouth at home on Saturday. Then it rolls straight into Wednesday away at Borough. Saturday, Leeds at home. Saturday, Hull away. Tuesday, Sheffield Wednesday away. Luton at home, Millwall away. It's horrible. To be fair, if you're in a bad run of form, you're looking at them and going, "Oh, this is not going to be easy." Fortunately, we know the Championship, and you're as likely to beat Leeds at home as you are to lose to Portsmouth at home, aren't you?
Well, look at the last two games. We put in some decent performances. We battered Stoke and lost 2-0. We had the Swansea game where I felt like we weren't that great and we won 1-0. So it is an open league, but I do think that when you've come out of this period of this international break, I think if you can hit the ground running and get a result, that's a brilliant thing to kick on with, because, like you say, we've got some tough fixtures coming up, and I don't feel like we've got an X factor in our team like we had with Schmodic. So it is a team effort now for us. It's a sum of all parts rather than just relying on that one player. And I hope the sum of all parts all work out well.
Yeah, just like you said before, I'd just like to see him rotating it a little bit more. So I'd like to see a bit more trust in Buckley. Cozy Dewberry's done an interview that's come out today, I think, and he said he feels like he'll be ready for the first game back. Obviously on Saturday, whether he's match fit or not is a completely different matter. But having him back for this period's a big thing. Obviously, Leonard's had another couple of weeks on the grass. Gilson's coming back in the background. But I'd just like to see people like Baker who have shown that they've got something and they've something to offer, getting that chance, really. I think we do it at wing backs. Feel quite comfortable and seem to trust both sets of wing backs, really, full backs. So I'd just like to see us mixing it up a little bit more in the middle of the park and further forward.
I'm loving some of these scouting reports that they have on whoscored.com, because they're saying that our strengths are counter-attacks and Portsmouth's weaknesses are defending counter-attacks. We're strong with aerial duels, but they're quite weak at defending it. I just hope that this scouting report is true, and we can have a real good go at them, because if we can come into this game and get a few goals, it will build confidence. And like you say, we've got some players there coming back that hopefully will have an X factor. Cozy Dewberry being one of them, where he was a massive player in his previous loan spell, and then he's come to us. I would love to see him have that same kind of impact for us.
I think he's quite key, to be fair. He just offers something different to what we've got, doesn't he? And he's also the only other left footer in that position, really, is Hedges, and he's not got the pace that you need sometimes. So, yeah, I'm hoping for quite big things from him, really.
Yeah, and it's going to be important for people like Hedges when they do get their opportunity to take, because he will get his opportunity because he's Hedges and he's one of our starters. But if he carries on the form that he's had the previous games where he's been a little bit up and down, and Cozy Dewberry's coming back in, Siggy's coming back in, Hedges is going to be one of those that might find himself back on the bench. Not terrible, because, like we said, he's not built to have a run of games. So it could be nice for him to have a forced rest. But generally, yeah, I think it's going to be important for players. And hopefully, like you say, the players like Buckley that might get an opportunity, they've got to step up and take their opportunity, because I can't see Travis and Tronstad losing that midfield positions. We've already talked about Baker. We've already talked about the likes of Buckley, and would you see JRC stepping into that midfield role? And you've got these positions there that seem to be set. If you're coming in, like, you've got to sort it. Make sure it's you're solid in that position. Sorry, I'm laughing because Aaron's just put this in. Polished it for you, Aaron. Polished it for you, mate.
So just for those who are listening to this,
hopefully you're growing your beard as well. I've started to grow it a little bit.
Yeah, just for those who are listening to this, obviously, Mr. Boyce has just said, "Don't worry, guys, I'm here. Mike, your hair looks exquisite." And for those of you who've never seen Mike, it does look exquisite.
Well, I've literally just come off the training pitch, 2 hours, absolute wind, rain, monsoon-like weather, and you can tell with my hair because my hair is an absolute mess.
Have you no snow?
Oh, we've had nothing yet. No, it's meant to be tomorrow.
It's dropping the floor up here. It's sticking. There's been people in the streets. It's sticking. It is sticking. They are panicking. They're digging the road out already. It's not that bad, but yeah, there's a little bit of snow.
There was talk of it tomorrow, but yeah, we don't get much snow around here. It's the balmy Midlands.
Well, yeah.
You guys come for a nice warm holiday down to us, don't you?
Aye, Walsall away. I'm in my shorts and t-shirt no matter what time of year. Yeah?
Well, that's the thing. You need to make sure you've got your sun cream on as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So before we move on from the Portsmouth game, can you see anything other than us getting points?
No, I think 3 points is what we should expect. I think 3 points is what we'll get. I will just wish that the games were a different way around, because really Portsmouth at home, in the nicest possible way, and I know the championship is the game that you probably would have rotated it a bit more. And it has a bit less effect, doesn't it, when you've had 2 weeks off and then you're going into the Middlesbrough and Leeds games, though. So I would have, Middlesbrough, we're going to be arriving back on our infamous bus early hours of Thursday. We're then playing Saturday morning. So, yeah. Do you rest them this game, or do you have to rotate it a bit for Borough? I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I think 3 points on Saturday, though. I do.
Yeah, I hate predicting. I'm terrible at predicting, but I can't see anything other than a Rovers win. So, yeah, hopefully I haven't jinxed that. I'd like to see an ounce of rotation from the last couple of games. I'd like to see a bit of game time for the players that have been injured and coming back. Maybe a couple of youth players coming on. I think we need to start rotating people in, because like we've said, suspensions and injuries, all these things are going to happen. And I'd prefer us to have players that have come in and had a little bit of game time now than when we're forced to do it. So, it's that situation where if we just keep playing the same team and getting results, and then we suddenly get a little bit of a crisis, we're throwing players in that might not necessarily be up to game speed. So now we need to start rotating people in. You've said in the past, it's best to do it now rather than force it. And I think that's the best thing to do. And I think this game, if we can hopefully put it to bed relatively early, I'm talking 65th minute, I'd like to see us make some rotation then. But yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, let's wait and see. In Eustace, we trust on that one. But moving on to the next topic, obviously the international players that were out. Mark, have you got some information for us?
Yeah, so obviously this ties into, I think this is going to force our hand with some rotation. So I've already said Yuki Ohashi has made his debut for Samurai Blue for Japan at the ripe old age of 28. He came on as a second half substitute, and we're recording this obviously Monday night. He is due to play on Tuesday, I think it is, so tomorrow at 12 o'clock. So he's not yet played his second game, so he's not going to be arriving back till late. So I can't see him certainly not starting on Saturday. Andy Weimann, obviously at the ripe old age of 103, earned his 26th cap for Austria. He came on as a sub didn't play loads, but then he's not played on today's game. It was yesterday's game. Sorry, it was an unused sub. So yeah, probably not too different for Vyman to the others. In terms of the rest of them, we've got Igor, Tyson, and Michalski appeared as subs for England under 17s and 18s. I mean, they are living the dream. One's playing in Marbella, one's playing in Valencia. We've then got Leo Duru, who's been playing for USA under 20s. They've had a training squad initially, and then he's played France under 20s today. If you have a look on X, just search Leo Duru. The Americans that have been watching the game just talking about how fast he is. But yeah, he's been in Marbella, so he's living the time of his life. It's a hard life, isn't it, being a footballer? So, yeah, so there's not loads of them been playing, but equally, somebody like Vyman, you would imagine, would really benefit from a week off and then a week's training. He's not had that at all. So he's been an unused sub last night, but then he's played a few, I think he's about 20 minutes off the bench on Friday. So he should be okay. But yeah, it's good to see our youngsters. I mean, particularly Michalski and Tyson. Michalski's playing for the England under 18s. So he's obviously highly rated. Tyson we know about. We know England and Poland are in a bit of a battle for him. But Leo Duru's getting rave reviews for the USA. Now, he's obviously our third choice at the minute, really, for right back. So it'd be interesting whether he goes out on loan in January. But yeah, some positive news there, really, for our internationals. Yuki, we'll yet to see if he plays the second game, but regardless, I can't see him coming back into the starting 11 on Saturday. So there's some rotation there, and maybe the same for Vyman, to be fair.
Well, I've got a question for you and the people watching, if you want to leave a comment. Out of everyone in the squad, who do you think are going to be the ones that are going to be making their international debuts over the next couple of years? 2, 3, 4 years, maybe. Because we've got quite a talented young squad. I mean, we've got some players there that have been on the cusp, like your Hedges. But I do think that obviously the English players might not necessarily get on because the standard's a bit different. But is there anyone there that you feel could be making any kind of international debuts over the next, say, 2 to 4 years?
I mean, your leanings are to go to those that are already playing in the youth teams, isn't it? Obviously, you get the Ohashis of this world that come in at 28, but that's unusual, isn't it? That would mean somebody like Gay getting a chance, which he's obviously a million miles away from the moment. I think you've got to look to the likes of Duru. I mean, Conor O'Riordan, we'll talk about him with the loans. He is a million miles away at the minute, but he's been playing for Ireland under 20s. Similarly, under 21s, Zach Gilson has played a lot of football, hasn't he? But they've got big leaps to make. I'm going to say Duru. I think Duru's performing well for the USA under 20s. He's looked decent when he's come in for us. So it'll be all about his game time. If he can go and get game time, even in League One, and he then gets into the USA under 23s, I think they have, rather than 21s, I could see him getting a shot in that squad. Partly due to the fact that, I am being disrespectful, the USA are nowhere near as good as some of the teams in Europe, are they? So,
well, no, and we've also got some players as well that could potentially make it back into international, like your Tronstads with Norway.
He's the one that's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a very tough line ahead of him, but it's the same with Hyam at Scotland. They've both got one cap. Could you see them maybe coming back into international reckoning?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Scotland, don't you? You see people like Grant Hanley. You've got to think he's got a chance, hasn't he? I think if he performs like he did that first 6 months with us, then you would say so. Obviously, we've discounted Owen Beck because of the fact he's not really our player. I mean, the other one, Mike, that I can't believe you haven't mentioned is Ryan Hedges. He just doesn't get a sniff with Wales, does he? And they're not blessed with people in those forward positions. So,
yeah, I said at the start about Hedges, to be honest, I said like he was on the cusp, but it was like his face didn't fit, wasn't it? And he just didn't seem to get that opportunity. I mean, Steve's just said, have to say I'm surprised Tronstad hasn't been called up more for Norway, at least as a squad player, given his consistency and reliability. Now, obviously, he has had an international cap, hasn't he? And I'm just bringing up the Norway squad, and I don't know why. I just couldn't see Tronstad lining up next to Erling Haaland, but that, you know, he's had a good season, but putting him in next to Erling Haaland's another thing. I just think that he's probably got a little bit too much in front of him. Hyam, I think if he'd kept his form up and not had the lull that he had, I think he would have been a lot better and probably more regular with Scotland, especially, like you say, some of the names that are called up. Hedges is the strange one because I feel like he would have offered something a little bit for Wales, but they took what was his name on loan to us?
Thomas.
Thomas. You know, they took him instead. So I don't think we're necessarily blessed with a load of international players. Phillips put, I'd say, Tijon for Poland potentially. But I think because Tijon's been playing a little bit for England's youth and the youth side, he's probably going to be more along the lines of, you know, feeling that situation out before he commits. Yeah. I think if he stops seeing some youth football at England level, he'll probably go across and get some international football for Poland. But no, international football-wise, we're not exactly blessed with a club that's got them flying out. Whether Gay is going to say international football depends on whether he can find some form. But generally, everyone else is of the English persuasion. And let's be honest, that's a difficult squad to get into. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see some English players getting, you know, some caps for England for us. But I think we're a hell of a long way from that happening. So, moving on from the international players, more players that are talking about not playing for Rovers and other people, and that is our loan Rovers. Now, Mark, you've done some investigations into the players that are currently out on loan. What have you got for us?
I have. So I'm going to leave Conor O'Reilly until the end because I've actually spoken to one of the Cambridge fans, and I've got the Bristol Rovers podcast are literally just sending me a voice note. So if I can get that to work, I will. I'll play that for you. But yeah, so I'll go through the players. So we've got loads and loads of youngsters. I've just picked a couple out that have been mentioned in and around the first team before, or that have been mentioned as really, really highly rated. So we've got Harrison Wood. He's away at Annan Athletic in League One in Scotland. So that's not even the Championship. They're 9th out of 10th teams as well in that league. He's 19. He's Harrison Wood. He's played 7, but not played in the last 5. This is a common thread. Charlie Olsen, who's been mentioned as he was mainstay of the 21s last year. He's at Altrincham in the National League. 19 he is again. He's played 10 games, but not the last 4. Don't know if he's got a knock. Trying to find that information out was nigh on impossible. Jake Batty. Forget Jake Batty's only 19. Obviously, he's away at Accrington Stanley in League 2. They're 18th out of 24, but they've had a bit of an upturn in form recently. Batty's played 10 games, got 3 yellows. Well done. But getting some really good reviews, particularly going forward. And he did an interview the other day talking about how he wasn't ready to play first team football for Rovers, but he needed to go and play first team football. So he's recognised that himself. I've watched him loads for the 21s, and he'd started to get to a level in the 21s whereby he looked a cut above. He looked like that player who, a bit like Jake Garrett was doing the same, where he's too good for the 21s now. And you could see he wasn't really learning things. He was starting to do things that weren't really his natural game, but he could get away with it. And that's dangerous territory. So I'm glad he's gone out on loan. Stanley fans really rave about him. James Edmondson, who obviously was he our youngest ever goal scorer, James Edmondson? He's only 18 still. He's at Macclesfield. I had to mention them. They're obviously managed by Robbie Savage. They have won, I think it's all but 2 games, and they're still unbeaten. And he's played every game since he went in late October, and they are raving about James Edmondson. So it's a low level, but fair play to him because he's playing centre midfield, and that, you know, that's a position you can get bullied in those leagues. We've got Pat Gamble, who's gone out to Fylde in the National League. Obviously, he's been on the bench quite a bit last year. 20s, Pat Gamble, young for a centre half. Played 9 games, but been on the bench 7. So he's been a bit up and down. He's played right back and played centre half. Tom Aitchinson, another that's really highly thought of, and also he's just turned 18 and he's just signed a professional contract with us for, I think it was 2-3 years. Really good news that, because he's so highly rated, Tom Hitchen. He's in playing for Marine in the National League North, so it's a one below Pat Gamble. But he's only 17, just gone 18. He's played 10 games, 6 he's not been in the squad. But to be fair, at centre-half in that league, that is all about physicality, so he's doing well. Jack Vale's gone to Motherwell. He's 23. They're 5th out of 12 in that league. He's got a calf injury and he won't be back until January, and he'd only played 2 games. So it's more of the same for Jack Vale. Forgetting his last loan there at the end of last season, this is the Jack Vale that we've known, unfortunately. Lots of injuries, and he's getting to an age now where he's struggling, isn't he? And then obviously we've got the ones who are a bit more prominent then. We've got Conor O'Riordan. He's gone away to Cambridge. He's only 20s, Conor O'Riordan. He's gone away back to League One, which is where he came from with Crewe. He's played 4 games. He's just got back on the bench. But I'll be honest, it's not been a raving review. So I talked to Under the Abbey Stand pod, and he said that Connor's played as part of a back 3 or a back 5, whichever you want to call it, on the right and the left-hand side of the centre halves. At first, he looked like a player of real quality. He was really quality on the ball, and it was obviously a really good aerial threat as well with his height. But after his first decent showings, his form has fallen off a cliff. He was really, really poor in a succession of games around the end of August and September, and he made mistakes that directly led to goals. And he's either lost all his confidence or he's not up to the level. Not sure which yet. He's lost his place in the team, and he's probably rock bottom of the pecking order in the centre-back options now. Not sure we'll see him beyond any of the EFL trophy games. Hope that assessment's wrong, as there were glimpses of a player in there, and it would only take a few injuries to get under the shot. But I am worried the jumping quality is too soon for him, which is interesting considering he was playing pretty much every week for Crewe. It was also interesting he didn't go back to Crewe. Not sure why that was. Then we've got Dylan Markande, who's gone to Chesterfield. This is the one that's bizarre for me. He's gone to League 2. I don't understand what we've really gained from this. For me, it was a lose-lose. So I know that they've done an interview recently, and Eustace has said he's been mismanaged before this. But if Dylan Markande had gone to League 2 and done nothing, we've lost. You know, he's not coming back from that. If he goes to League 2 like he has, he's played 13 games, 5 goals, 2 assists. They're absolutely raving about him. Chesterfield, I mean, they're 11th out of 24, Chesterfield, but they're saying he's the best player they've ever seen at this level. All these kind of things. All right, his confidence is being built. But for me, he needed to go to League 1. And Dylan Markande's done an interview. He said, I wanted guaranteed game time. But he should be good enough to play in League 1, because this is the player that we are talking about potentially coming back and playing in our team. If he's doubting whether he himself is good enough in League 1, I'm not sure. So they're talking about whether they leave him there, whether they bring him back, whether they send him to somewhere in League 1. I would have liked to have thought that he would be playing in a League 1 team. If he's not, then he's nowhere near good enough for us. But hey ho, we'll see. And then we've got Jake Garrett. Jake Garrett's somebody that a lot of Rovers fans felt should stay around. We talked, beginning of the season, we were debating should Jake Garrett stay and should Travis go. He's gone to Bristol Rovers in League 1. He's only 21, Jake Garrett, but he's they're 14th out of 24. He's played 6 games, but they were all early on. He's been on the bench for 7. He's not played in the last 5 games, and he's got 1 yellow card. And actually, one of the games just before that, the 6th game, if you like, back, was a EFL trophy game where the whole team got slated as well. And the player that I'm going to throw in, he's not gone on loan, but just because he was in this clutch of players last year, was Georgie Gent. It's Georgie Gent's 20. He's gone obviously permanently to Barnsley, who are in League 1, and they're 5th out of 24. He's played 9 games on the left and midfield, and they are raving about him. So I do hope, and I'm sure we have, but I do hope we've protected ourselves with that there. And there's either a buyback or something, because actually out of the crop of our players on loan, he looks like he's probably the best of the lot, and we've sold him.
I think on that last point, I think at the next international break, I think we should actually do a little bit of a where are they now kind of thing with the players that have left, and were the Volsteads and the Sam Gallaghers, the ones that we thought could have come in and done a job. Like Volstead come in and do a job. For Gallagher, who was one of our starters, how have they done? So I think that will be quite good for us to go through. But talking about the loan players, I mean, I'll be honest, Jack Vale, to me, his Rovers career is over. I don't think there's any coming back. I think if you're going to the SPL, well, Motherwell, and trying to build a career again, you need to bang in the goals to be able to go out on loan and come back and actually be effective. And he's not done that. So as far as I'm concerned, at the age of 23, we've seen everything we need to see of him. It's probably, thank you very much for your service, off you go.
I mean, sorry, mate, just on Jack Vale, it's incredibly harsh on him, isn't it, what we're saying? Because it's not his fault he's injured, and I'm sure he's equally as frustrated. But it's not the first injury, is it? And I mean, it's not a personal thing about Jack Vale, but he's not shown us we can rely on his ability yet. And he's 23, he's older than Dolan. And yet he's now not showing us that we can rely on him for fitness either. And that's been probably over the last 2 or 3 years. He seems to have had a lot of injuries. I might be wrong in that, but he feels like he has. So I absolutely agree. I think he himself needs to go somewhere. And I really hope he gets into the Motherwell team in January when he comes back from injury, has a real run of games. But for me, it doesn't really make a difference to his Rovers career.
No, I mean, I don't wish ill of him. I think, he's been a pro. I mean, he's not offered the club much, and the investment that whatever we've put into him, we haven't had anything in return. And ultimately, that from the business side, it's probably not been it hasn't been a success. I mean, if we want a nice guy up front, we can go and find a nice guy. It doesn't mean that he's going to score goals. And yes, I would love a player that's come through the ranks to come in and score loads of goals, just like I'm hoping Harry Leonard does it. And Jack Vale was one that I said I wanted to see more game time because Gallagher wasn't doing it. He came in, he got a goal. I think did he get 2? Or was he only? He's got a couple, hasn't he? In the cup, yeah, so he can score, but just not enough, and it's not worthwhile. And I don't feel like it's worth the risk with him. So I would prefer Harry Leonard to play. And we've now got Ohashi. Gay, obviously, the jury's still out with. So as far as I'm concerned, Jack Vale's probably gone. Now, talking about the other ones, so Markandale, I completely agree. I think it's about building his confidence. But for me, it screams Harry Chapman. So Harry Chapman, obviously, he came in, fanfare, everyone was raving about him. But there's obviously something mentally where he's struggling to put form together at the higher level. I actually think he was quite a good squad player for us when he came on. I don't think he looked out of sorts. He didn't look out of place. I thought he was doing a good job. He was getting goals in the cups. Obviously, we're now out the cup, but we've got the FA Cup coming up. I would have liked to have seen him stay. And I completely agree. I think League 2 is a very weird one for us. I would have thought it would have been a League 1. And if you can't find a League 1 squad at the age of 22, to go and play at regularly, is it another one where you're just like, okay, it's going to be like a Harry Chapman where it's just not going to work out. Talking about Conor O'Riordan, this one is difficult for me because they're saying that he's not played, but and his form's dropped off. He's 20 years old. That's quite young, especially for centre back playing in that level. And if you haven't got someone next to you that's talking to you, that's supporting you, then I can understand why. Maybe he had a drop off and he panicked a little bit in certain situations. I haven't seen him actually play, but I'm guessing there's been something about this where he might have made mistakes or something. I would love to have seen him with a McFadden or a Danny Batth or a Dom Hyam next to him, because I think they're the kind of players that if you put him next to him, he would actually perform a bit better. So I'm not concerned about O'Riordan. Jake Garrett, slightly concerning because he did have a good start to his career there and he has fallen off. But if Bristol have found something that's working for him and he's just not coming in, it's like us. We've got Travis and Tronstad playing in centre mid. Does it mean that Buckley can't do it? Does it mean that Lewis Baker can't do it? No, it's just we don't want to break them up. So, yeah, I'd like to see if I think if Jake Garrett doesn't get games by the window, I think you're looking at, because has he actually played a game for us this year? He went on loan before the season. No, so we could recall him and send him somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing stopping us doing that. But yeah, I mean, we've had a comment here. Well, actually, from Aaron saying in each individual case, these loans seem like a massive waste of time. And sometimes it does, but sometimes it's a case of the players just need to go and get a different environment and see something different. And Mark and I do think it's a confidence thing. But Garrett and O'Riordan, that we do need to see them get some game time. We really do.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I've talked to quite a few people about things like this, and it sounds daft, this, but it's not always about the games that they're playing. Sometimes it depends on the character, but for some of these players, it's about learning to go and be in an uncomfortable environment, learning that, you know, let's be honest, Rovers is like a Premier League club in terms of their academy. They're pampered. They go, even at under 8s, they've got the full Rovers kit, full Rovers tracksuit. They're playing on carpets. So to go and, you know, some of these experiences that Pat Gamble will be having away at Marine and things, you can't buy them. And then actually being in a changing room where people hold you to account, that's massive learning, because in the 21s, a man and his dog are watching. Yeah, they might get picked up on it and they'll go and learn about it in training, but it doesn't really matter. It's a learning, it's a training game, really, the 21s. Going and Jake Garrett probably, like, if we're being honest, sat on the bench last year, warmed up and thought I should be playing here in this Rovers team. And probably we don't know how he took that. But going away to Bristol City, it's a real wake-up call for him. Actually, I'm not even getting in here. And that itself could be enough. Conor O'Riordan, you know, he's had a rise from Crewe. For all we know, and I would imagine so, Conor O'Riordan's gone through all the age levels and been the best player by a stretch. He's gone straight into the Crewe first team at an early age and played a lot of football. He's gone to Rovers and had his big move. He's played a few games and done okay. He's probably never experienced a setback. So actually learning to deal with that and knowing it's all right, you're only 20, we'll fix it. You know, what was Scott Wharton when he got in our first team? 25? Hayden Carter had 2 or 3 loans. Some worked. He went to Burton first, then he went to Portsmouth. Some worked more than others. This is learning. It's not just about what's happening on the pitch and how much game time they are getting necessarily. They'll be learning loads about themselves. And actually, some of it will be hunger. If we're being honest, there will be 1 or 2 of these players. I don't know them personally, but there'll be 1 or 2 of them that are a bit pampered, strolling around like they've made it. And they're going away to these clubs in National League or in the, you know, the lower in the Football League, where they're looking around and thinking, what is this changing room? They might have to be washing their own kit. They might have training only twice a week, so they're going back to Rovers sometimes. Some people have been working that day and then they're coming to training. It's a dose of reality because they've not made it. I mean, the benchmark that Rovers use, and I think is quite commonly used, is that if you play 100 games in the Championship or the Premier League, then I think the stats go to something like 90% of those players make a career in the Football League. And there's not many of them, if any, that are anywhere near that. You know, Mark Anday is probably not over 50 league games, is he? So, you know, there's still a way to go.
Yeah, and like you say, getting them out of their comfort zone, I think is important. And what's interesting is the likes of Jack Vale, we can find clubs that want to take him on. So there's obviously something there. I mean, Mark's put it here. He said, I agree. I agree and think Vale sadly hasn't lived up to expectation. And we just hoped it would have clicked for him. Now, I think that's the other thing as well, is you don't want to readily let players go. Like you just said, you know, Scott Wharton has now become quite an important player for us. I know he's injured, but he became quite an important player, and he didn't make his debut till his mid-20s. You never know when it's going to click with these guys. And if they're not on much wages and people are willing to take them on and take on their wages, you do think to yourself, well, why not keep them on board and keep shifting them out and hopefully it clicks. But I think, it's going to be an interesting few weeks before the window. We've seen it before where players are recalled and then sent off elsewhere. And I think we might see that with the likes of Garrett and O'Riordan there. And obviously all the young lads going off to all these smaller clubs. I think it's just like you've said in the past, it's giving them a dose of men's football. Guys that, you know, are willing to come and kick lumps out of each other and you have to grow up pretty quick. I mean, we've seen it in the past where some players, they just can't handle men's football.
And it means a lot. I mean, I've played football not at the standard you've played, but then you start going up these leagues. I mean, you get the odd player, Wrexham's players, Salford's players to a lesser extent, that'll be on good money. But the majority of the players in the Football League right now, particularly League One, League Two, will need to go and get a job if their career ended today, or even when it ends at the end of their career. So things like win bonuses will mean massive amounts to these players. So, conceding a late goal and we get an equaliser away at Borough next Wednesday, we'll be okay with that result. But actually, whilst the result itself for a club might be okay in League One and Two, those players will be fuming because it might cost them half, the opportunity to potentially double their week's wages or whatever it is. So it means a lot. And they're not going to thank you for that.
No. But this topic does lead us beautifully into the question of the week that was put out, and that was which Rovers Academy player most failed to live up to their promise. So, Mark, there's some answers here. Is there any that are jumping out to you?
Do you know one that, and it's only because every single pre-season I fooled myself into thinking he was going to be our starter. He was going to be scoring goals in the Premier League. He was going to be an outstanding player in the Premier League. And he had a great career, really, considering, but not the career I thought he should have had. And that was Paul Gallagher. And I might be really harsh there, but Paul Gallagher, every pre-season, looked to shoo-in to get in our first team. And he never, ever did. And he went to Leicester and he had a decent career, didn't he? And obviously at Preston. But he was the one who I always felt almost like Danny Butterworth in the latter years, but to a lesser extent, where in pre-season, he always looked like he was almost a cut above anybody on the pitch. But I think, again, I think of people like Junior Hoylett. I think of people like Adam Henley that came in, had that game at Man United, played so well, played right back, played left back. I think he played for America, disappeared. He's playing in MLS, I think now, or somewhere in America. And then even right back to Jay McEverley. Jay McEverley, again.
Yeah, I remember Jay McEverley, yeah.
Smashed Beckham, was it? At Old Trafford and at Ewood when we played them. There's been a number for me that have just not quite done it. I think I know you're going to say, so I'm not stealing thunder, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got a big one, but one you did mention there was Danny Butterworth. Mark Atherton agrees with you. He said, I'd probably say Danny Butterworth really thought being the next thing, but injuries played a major issue. But when he did get his chance, he always looked shattered. And I think there's been, when we was back on the Rovers chat channel, there was a lot of discussions about Danny Butterworth being someone that would hopefully kick on, and he just never did. And he was definitely someone that was quite good at the youth football, but couldn't really bring it into men's. And Tim DYO said Sergio Peter always had the confidence, but no real ability to back it up. I mean, Sergio Peter, that's going back a bit. But
I mean, whilst we're on Sergio Peter, Keith Treacy had more ability than him. I mean, he did a podcast. I can't remember where it was. Might have been under the cosh, but he was on a podcast, wasn't he? Really insightful. So obviously there was reasons behind that. But yeah, Keith Treacy was supposed to be the next Damien Duff, wasn't he?
Oh, definitely. And but I mean, there is no accounting to people having their personal issues, as much as, I mean, look at Ravel Morrison and players like that, you talk to Scholesy and that era, and they were just talking about the talent that Ravel Morrison had, but he had his demons, and that's why they don't make it. And obviously we still get it at our level. But the one that I was going to bring up that FPL Bullers brought up is Conor Mahoney. And that one's always frustrated me. I mean, some of the names we've spoken about, some of them, they were coming through when we had a really good squad. So, you're talking 90s, early 2000s, where these players were coming through. They weren't necessarily going to break through. But Conor Mahoney came through at a time where there was a position there to be had. And he came in and he lit it up. Every time he got on the pitch, he looked like he was going to do something. And he was just a player that I felt like if we tied him down to a nice big contract, he was going to be an exciting Rovers player and a potential big sale going forward. Because let's be realistic, we are a selling club. But yeah, I mean, we've said it before, we've talked about him. If the money's on the table to leave and go to a bigger club, you've got to take it. You've got to sort yourself out. I get that, but his career's gone nowhere near where I thought it should have gone.
No, he is one of the, we talked about the poster boys of, you play 100 games, you get your move. He's the poster boy for the opposite, isn't he? And I think had he not done that, the one that would have sprung to my mind would have been Junior Hoylett. Because I know he played in the Premier League for a number of years, but Junior Hoylett was heading for a move to a top 4 club at one stage. And instead, he took the money when QPR were throwing money around and disappeared off the face of a cliff, really, didn't he?
Yeah. And there's been quite a few players when you think about it, when you go back each year, of the ones that were coming through, they looked quite talented and they fell away. Damian Johnson, he came through ours, didn't he? We didn't buy him, did we? And he was another one that he got quite a few games for us, but I felt like he could have kicked on as well.
Yeah, he was a bit of a squad player, wasn't he? Similar time to Jonathan Douglas. I mean, to be fair to Damian Johnson, he played for a number of years. To Damian Johnson, came in around Duff and Dunn, didn't he? And played it, never quite as many as them. Played quite a few when we went down to what was Division 1 then, and then did quite well at Birmingham. So I felt Damian Johnson did okay. Jonathan Douglas, obviously, did better when he left us. Really, played a lot for Ipswich, albeit in a lower league. But yeah, there's a catalogue of them, really.
I might be being dumb because Matt Derbyshire doesn't count. But what about strikers coming through? How many strikers have we had come through the academy that we felt were going to make it? Because obviously Danny Butterworth's been mentioned. I can't think of many others.
Do you know what? The one that I always think about is, I'll tell you one, sorry, just going slightly back to the other players, is this Philip, I'm going to butcher his name here, but Philip Bayomo left our academy without even a sniff of a first team game. And he's been playing in Italy, in Serie A quite a lot, in La Liga quite a lot. So, he's doing really well. Gary Smith, thank you, you've saved us. James Beaty, great one. We had James Thomas, didn't we, around that time? And Ben. In
fact, we've had to go back that far. Shows we haven't had many strikers coming through, have we?
No, one I do remember was Jamie McLaren, who went on to play for Australia. He might have even captained Australia. And he was in and around our 21s and playing and scoring a lot at that time, but never really made it. There was... so we've struggled to bring a striker through, haven't we? That's made a massive impact, really. And even Matt Derbyshire, let's be honest, we bought him at all right. It was at
he doesn't count.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Harry Leonard's the most successful striker to come through our academy since James Beaty. Then he's come in and he scored goals.
Oh yeah.
Just hope it continues. I do hope it continues. So that was a good question of the week. And there's a few things that we've spoken about there that you do realise that not everything's rosy. Just because you make your debut doesn't mean you're going to have a career. And some decisions, injuries, things happen. It doesn't necessarily make it. But I feel like we've had more success the last 5 to 10 years of players coming through and actually playing for the club than we've ever had, because we've had to rely on that. So hopefully we'll get some more success out of that academy. But that moves us into the mailbag. Again, people watching, if you've got any questions, put it on and we'll take a look. Like we've just had one here from Oliver Collins. A prime Jordan Rhodes or a prime Adam Armstrong, Mark? It's a tough one. I
mean, that comment, has come from, I know you're not
We are on TikTok and we're doing quite well on TikTok, but let's be honest. I don't think, Mike, have you even downloaded the app? Is it? It's not.
Man, I can't bring myself to it. I feel like I'm too old for TikTok.
Well, just so you know, Ollie Collins on there as Jolly Ollie is what they call as TikTok famous. He is a Rovers fan that is followed worldwide on there. So, I mean, the fact he's on our stream, we should really be bowing down to him, if I'm being honest.
Oh, good man. Good man. I'm sorry. I'll come on just to follow Oliver then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't. I feel like I'm a bit behind the times with TikTok.
What are you going for, Mike? Rhodes or Armstrong?
I like a pacey striker. I like a poacher. Yeah. I'm also Jordan Rhodes, but it's a very difficult question. I felt like Rhodes gave us more over a longer period of time. I felt like Adam Armstrong was a little bit more, not flashing the pan, that was disrespecting him a little bit. But I felt like Rhodes gave us a lot more quality. But again, another player that left us and didn't live up to his hype. I mean, to open that previous question up about, youth players. I mean, how many players left us that didn't really go on to do bigger and better things? And he was definitely one of them. So we do have another mailbag question from Team DYO on X. For the next big Netflix fight, Mark will face off against Mike. However, they have to pick a former or current Rovers player to represent them in the ring. Who would you pick? So, Mark, you love your boxing.
I do.
Who would you pick to fight on your corner for you?
Well, first of all, there's not a cat and else chance I'm fighting you because I'm. There's a reason I'm a lover, not a fighter. But fighting you, Mike, I won't fancy my chances.
I'll be out of breath after the first haymaker thrown. As long as you avoid that first haymaker, I'll be on my ass.
Listen, if we are tag teaming, I'll just stand out and cheer on, and I will be cheering on Andy Todd.
He was a bit feisty, wasn't he? Didn't he know kung fu or something? He knew something, didn't he?
Well, Christoph Dugarry thought he knew kung fu when he launched him up the rear, didn't he, on the halfway line? He also allegedly, I think there might be a video of it, so I don't know how alleged it is, but allegedly rearranged Eyal Berković's face on stage. Did it? No, I take that back. That was John Hartson. But he did. There was a misdemeanor at Charlton when somebody was abusing his, I think he was calling his dad something or other, when his dad was down there. And there was a massive misdemeanor at Charlton. I think if you Google it, you'll probably find some alleged details. Yes. But Andy Todd, I'll be honest, Mike, with Andy Todd, I probably wouldn't need to do much. I could probably just cheer on. So, yeah, I'm going Andy Todd.
So I'm going to go for Big Chris Samba. I feel like he could take a few punches. You know, he'd stand there, he'd take it, and then he'd just do one bomb, and that'd be it. He connects and you're down. So I'm going to go Chris Samba, big old unit. He's taking him down. So that was an interesting question. So Anthony has asked us, where do you think Rovers will finish at the end of the season? So it was over 2 messages. It's something that I hate predicting. I predicted at the start of the season we'd be relatively low down the league. I've just opened up the league table now. We're sitting in 9th. We are a mighty 7 points off the relegation area, 3 points off playoffs. Mark, where do you think we're going to finish at the end of the season?
My heart says about 10th. My head says about 14th.
Yeah, I think we will have a drop-off. I think, like every single club, the window in January is going to be absolutely huge for us. And it's definitely a time for us to plug some holes and add some depth. I think if we have a good window and get some bodies in that are good championship players, I think we'll be looking around the 10th to 12th. realistically, I do think we're going to finish around the 15th. I think we're going to have a little drop off. I think we've got enough in the tank to put in good performances, but not necessarily get the results. And I think we will have a little bit of a drop off. So I think realistically, I think it'll be around the 15th. And to be honest, I'll class that as a good season. Reason being, I think we haven't spent much money. We've lost some key players. I mean, to lose a player like Schmodix and Ben Brereton before that, and still not be spending the money, and Adam Wharton. Well, I mean, we haven't even spoken about losing Adam Wharton. We've lost some big players, and we're still fighting. We've still got something there. So, assuming we don't have a great window, I think it's going to be around the 15th. Next question. So, Mark Atherton. He's put in the chat. Question will be: will we be talking about Ash Phillips and Rory Finneran in the same terms as Mahoney in a few years' time? So, I think with these two, it's a little bit different because I think that the position. I think Ash Phillips. I think the position he plays. I think he'll get way more opportunity to play at a high level than Conor Mahoney did. I think when you're an attacking player, I think that you've got probably a little bit less leeway if you're trying to make it at the top level. I think if you don't create the right chances, if you don't beat the players and get the ball into the box, which was the position he was playing, I think that it's quite easy just to toss him to the wayside, which is what happened. Whereas Ash Phillips playing at centre-back, I think he'll get more opportunity to play there. Plus, I think he has probably that little bit more quality than Conor Mahoney did at that kind of age, and Ash Phillips is a very young lad. Rory Finneran, it's a tough one to call with Rory. Very young lad. You're probably more qualified to talk. You've watched him way more than I have. Do you think that Ash and Rory could potentially be spoken about as being flops?
I think Ash Phillips might be considered one, but purely because I don't think he's going to get in the Tottenham team. But I think he'll go on to have a steady career. I think he'll be Championship, lower end Premier League. I've been seeing quite a bit of Ash Phillips right now. I think the only way he plays really is in a 3, and I think he looks very good at that. So it's how many, you never know what the next cycle of formations. So you've got Amorim, haven't you, coming in at United playing 3-4-3. Ange plays 3 at the back sometimes, but he doesn't seem to get a sniff there. So that's, Finneran, it's all about his development. He has more ability than I've seen in a footballer his age in a long, long time. Stood out in a way that Adam Wharton used to stand out, really. But you've a lot of bits to add on to that. He's very lightweight, but all these things were said about Adam Wharton. It's just a big thing, isn't it? He was a massive fish in our pond, and I know we played him in that cup game, and potentially that was to try and increase his value. Potentially it was whatever, but it also backfired because it alerted clubs. They already knew about him, but I worry about Rory Finneran. I think when you go at such a young age and everybody's talking about you and you go into an under-18s of a different club, there's a lot of fanfare. You're training with the first team. He probably isn't now. And he probably now feels, hold on a minute, I'm not just one step away from the first team. I've got to get in the 18s, now the 21s. And it's very, very different, isn't it? Very different. I think he could be more of a Callum Wright, which is the same thing Callum Wright did. Callum Wright went to Leicester, didn't he? In the end, we got about £1 million for him. But, I know he played against us the other week. But he's at Plymouth, isn't he? But he was on the bench. I think he was on the bench. But Callum Wright is not, he went with fanfare that he was playing for England under 20s. He was going to be an England international. Nowhere near lived up to that. So, I worry about Finneran. Not because of his ability. I just think you can get swallowed up easily at a big club.
His situation, I mean, I know it sounds really bad for me to say this, but when you've had Adam Wharton come in, play some games, sign his contract, commit to the club, let us play, and then he's had that move and he's playing there, that's a good advertisement to why you should be with us and signing the contract and staying. So from an absolute horrible, selfish side, you want people that leave and do this to kind of not succeed, because I sound like an absolute knobhead for saying that, but it advertises to say, like, look, stay with us, sign the contract. You will play games with us. You will develop. You will be loved. You will get your confidence. You will become a man playing men's football with us, and then move on. Everyone wins. And that's what I want to kind of be advertised through our academy. Ash Phillips, he's in that grey area, isn't he? Because he signed a contract, but he'd only sign it if he had these clauses in, so then he could go on the cheap. But I want Ash to succeed, because he did play for us. He did play some games, and he does, you know, hopefully develop and become a bigger player, and we should make some money out of him. But the Rory Finneran one, I am a little bit bitter on that one. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the live podcast. We're not going to do 90 minutes today because everyone's watching, and I don't think everyone's got 90 minutes, have you? So we'll just have another couple of questions. So Aaron Dunleavy said, what are your predictions for players out at the next transfer window? Now, I have a bold prediction for you, Mark. My bold prediction is Dolan won't be a Blackburn player by the end of the window. Do you have any bold predictions or any obvious ones you think will be gone by the end of the transfer window?
Well, I don't know if you read the paper at weekend, Mike, but we're going bust, so we better sell them all. I agree with you, actually.
Yeah,
our little girl's desperate to get him on the back of a shirt, and I did say, just wait and see till the end of the transfer window, but now I've delayed it again because I think the same. I think he will go out.
I can't see many going, but I think we're going to be forced into him going. I think we'll get a little bit of money.
Yeah, I think if we bring a striker in as well, I think Leonard will go on loan. But I think in terms of permanence, Luton were sniffing around him, weren't they? I think we will probably try and cash him.
I agree. Okay. Philip asked a question about John Park leaving. Now, the rumours are that John Parker's gone. If he has, well, it's going to be an interesting conversation to be why he's gone. I'll be honest, I looked in a little bit into the John Park situation, who he signed in the past. So obviously he was very high up on the scouting team. Was he head of scouting?
Yeah.
He's not head of recruitment, is he?
No.
Is it recruitment? No. So, and I looked at the players he so-called discover, and he's discovered, in inverted commas, players that are worth 4, 5, 6 million pounds, and they've come good, like your Van Dijks, your Dembele's, and stuff like that. I'm not that concerned about him going. I'm concerned about why he's gone. You know, why bring him back and then he's been so-called fired, or he's left, or he's resigned, whichever. But I don't necessarily think he was a fit for the club. He scouts players he scouts players that are normally worth a good few million pounds and end up being really, really good. We haven't got that. We're not going to be spending that few million pounds, and if we do, they're not going to be necessarily coming to us. So, is this something you're concerned about?
I'm concerned. I mean, obviously, it's not confirmed yet, is it? And we've got a fans forum coming up next week, actually, so I'm sure we'll find out more. But I'm concerned, like you said. Why is he gone? Why is he gone now? You would imagine that, you know, I think Alan Nixon brought the news, hasn't he? And we know what he's like. But he said that there's been some sort of disagreement about who's signing players or who to sign. Well, you can understand that. But my understanding of it was that it wasn't actually that complex, that they'd just broken the roles into different areas. So we've got Adam Owens, who looks at the technical data of things, a bit of a stats man, looks at, you know, almost your Moneyball kind of thing. You've got Rudy Gestead, who has contacts around the world and, you know, will feed players in through that kind of element. And then John Park should have been the experienced eyes. So it's not that complicated to me. So you imagine they're sat around a room. here's our budget. So they probably have Sahil and Steve Wagger at some of the meetings where they're talking about budgets and things. And you'd imagine that, right, let's say, John Eustace has made no bones about it. I want a striker and I want a winger with pace. Right, so, okay, let's go and look at a winger with pace. So they've obviously got access to, it's basically like Football Manager's search for everybody else. But Adam Owens looks at all the data, how many minutes have they played, how many expected goals, all that kind of thing. You obviously can't just rely on that, but that's his area of expertise. You've got Rudy Gestead, who's having agents flying, sending things into him, who's got friends at other clubs. So he's talking to people who used to be colleagues, people who used to play on side, people he knows, and saying to them, you've played against this guy. What's he like? What's his family like? Getting all that kind of nuggets of knowledge, which we talked about in the last pod, you used to get because they were all within England or Ireland. So you could talk to their families or people who knew them. So Gestead's doing that human element. But then John Park was supposed to have the experienced eyes and the one going, the real trustworthy. Now, we've identified these 4. Rudy's got these bits of background on them. Right, I'll go and watch them. Was supposed to be the understanding. And then they narrow a list down and John Eustace is presented with them. And which would you prefer, John? And right, let's see if we can do a deal within our budget. So the fact he's gone, we lose a bit of experience in there. Adam Owens, I don't know how many players he's signed before. Same with Rudy. John Eustace, though, at the Q&A was basically saying he wants more control. But I can't imagine that it's John Park he's struggling to get control with, because John Park's used to working, he used to work very closely with Mowbray, didn't he? And he used to bring quite a lot of British-based players in that he knew. So is it the fact that this is a completely different way of working, they're from different eras? Is he struggling with that? Is it, are they having debates around Rudy's going, well, do you know what? I've seen the stats. We've seen the clips. We'll go with this player. And John Park's getting frustrated because he's not allowed to do his job. As if he's going and watching 2 of them and saying, well, no, absolutely not. This is the one you need to be signing. That would be frustrating, wouldn't it? Because you can't do your job, which ultimately I think is why Greg Broughton's no longer at the club, whether that was his decision or the club's. A lot of the autonomy was being taken away from him. So I'm concerned about why he's gone. Yeah. And I think this was the concern all along, that if you have 3 people, is it too many? Who has the final say? John Eustace said in the Q&A, I do not have a final say. So if it's not him, who does?
It sounds like a structure change, and he's not happy with the change.
Yeah. He came back in the summer, though, didn't he? He came back with the other 2. So he knew what he was walking into. So it feels again like, we've got a new dawn and something's going wrong with it already.
Well, it's a worry, and I didn't want to end the podcast on a worry because it feels like we're so up and down, aren't we? We're so up and down. It feels like as soon as we see something happening, we feel things are positive. Like we saw some players coming through the door and they seem to hit the ground running, and then this happens. He's just like, and then you hear last week about the Indian government situation and money not being sent. And we're just back a bit feeling really flat. And I feel like the 2 are linked. I feel like the fact that this hasn't been sorted and now someone on the recruitment team is now left, you just feel like everyone's just getting extremely frustrated, and they're like, hang on, why am I here? Like, I'm going out and finding these players. I'm getting you these dossiers on these players. These are the players I'm finding. And you can't even go and get them. So what am I doing here? And someone like John Park that has had a pretty good career, and he's just thinking, I'll just go elsewhere. Why waste my time with a club that's beg, borrowing and stealing when I have previous of finding the Van Dijks of the world?
You're just going to feel, one, that your work is pointless. That what exactly what you said, what is the point? I think the concern is that like you said, the Indian government situation. So for those who don't know, obviously I sit in the fans forum and the club maintain that this, I'm going to it next week, but I'm pretty certain they'll maintain the same, that Venkys have said they will always underwrite any debts
fine, and they've always done that. My concern is, are they willing to fund the club? So they can fund the club. It just means that if I want to put £1 million in, I have to put £1 million in a trust account with the Indian government until it's sorted. So it's costing me £2 million out of my bank. I might, if everything gets sorted, I'll get that £1 million back, but it is costing that money. So they can fund the club, but seemingly, if we look at the evidence now, we've had Adam Wharton go for up to 22 million. Sammy Smodics has gone. We've not spent that money. That money has come into the club. The wages have gone up a bit. We spent a bit of the money. But effectively, we've seen that the Venky's overarching company has made was it £1.5 million profit on player sales. So we're now not, it's not cost Venky's any money in the last 12 months, basically, is what my layman's term reading of that is. So, right, well, the court case has been bumped along again. By all accounts, Venky's expected to keep getting bumped along because it's just the way that things work in India. And they're not overly concerned about the fact it keeps getting delayed. But it's a concern to me that we are left in limbo. And the question is not now, are they going to fund the club? Because they seem to be saying, yeah, I'll fund the debts. But I feel like we've been running on almost, I wouldn't say emergency, but essential only. That seems to be the way our business has been done. Whether it's, no, we're not flying to games now, we're going to hire this team bus. Whether it's, no, we can't go out and buy the players we want, so we'll gamble on Gay, we'll gamble on Telalovic. We're running on an essential only. And as we've seen time and time again, history tells you that ultimately that leads to a decline. And we've declined as a club. I worry that if this either isn't going to end soon, which it doesn't look like it's going to, or Venky's don't change the way they're funding us, because we've got an FFP window here where we've got room for manoeuvre in FFP, which we don't normally have because we lose money. That will disappear. That's a rolling 3 years. That will disappear. So if they're not willing to start to invest, then they're not going to be able to do in 3 years. Or you or I might win Euro millions. We still couldn't. I'm just a bit worried that we're on essentials only. There's been a slow decline over the last, probably not the last transfer window, but the 4 before that, I feel there was. And I'm worried that if we carry on with an essentials only motto and mandate, then it's only going to lead one way. And you've got to wonder whether that's why John Parks left. Was he waiting for, oh, well, hopefully it'll get sorted. I can't believe he was, though, because even in the fans forum minutes, it does say in there, it's not sorted, but it's not a concern. And actually, it could be possible that it'll get postponed again. So I can't think that they're telling us that and they're not telling him that. But it just seems very coincidental timing, doesn't it?
It does, and it's worrying. It's worrying. I mean, we do talk about these things and on here, and we try and be fans that are positive and, you know, look through this side and just talk about the football side, but you can't talk about the football side without talking about the business side. You know, that's the way football has gone. And you are on the forum, and we know that you will share everything that you can with us, and hopefully we'll get some answers on that forum. And we know you'll push them, Mark. You know, you're the big dog. We know that you'll go and we know you'll go and push them.
I wouldn't quite say that, but you've got to ask the question that I think needs asking, which is, are they willing to fund us now? You know, are they willing to fund us, not just fund the debts, are they willing to fund us in a way that allows the club to progress? Because it needs investment, doesn't it? It needs investment in the first team. You know, it doesn't mean millions and millions, because we know that doesn't necessarily work. But John Eustace needs more. Now, I know a manager always wants more. You go back to Graham Souness when he was in charge. He always wanted more. And we, you know, spent millions on that team. But it's not worked, has it, bringing Gay in right now? And it's not working. And if you go and bring another Ohashi in, it might well work. But it might take a year for that player to adjust to English football. I just think we need to be very careful. Very. And I also think if you're John Eustace, there comes a point where, you know, if we went and finished 8th this year, which is not beyond the realms, he's pulled a rabbit out of the hat, if we're being honest. Is that the time to cut your losses, say, do you know what? I wasn't getting the backing I needed, the investment I needed, and go? Because you're going to start to think then, well, people have got short memories. If we're 15th at the beginning of next season, I'm going to get the sack here. So, I start to worry about that. And then we're in the same problem again. Who comes in now? And it's, just starts a hierarchy leaving just starts to send. We've been here before, haven't we? And as I've said a few times, I've seen this episode before and we know the way it ends.
Yeah, hopefully the information comes out. It's not as bad as what's feared, and that there's a proper reason for it. But if it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it is normally a duck. And we've had plenty of ducks in the past with Rovers, especially under the Venkys. But stranger things have happened, and hopefully we come into January, we've got money being spent. They're willing to spend double just to get those players in with whatever the restraints they've got. Strange things have happened. I've literally just found out that San Marino won 3-1 today against Liechtenstein. It's the first time they've ever scored 3 goals. So if San Marino can go and get 3 goals, Rovers can get some money to spend in the transfer window. Stranger things have happened, Mark.
I'll tell you what. That's their second win now, isn't it? If San Marino are going and winning 3-1, all bets are off. That's it. We're going up. Football. We're going up.
But we're going to end it there, guys. Thanks to everyone that's watched and contributed. It's been good fun. It's the first live one I've done in a while. Really appreciated it, and it's been good fun. Mark, I've enjoyed this one.
Absolutely. Let us know your thoughts, guys. Don't forget to please do like and subscribe. I was saying to Mike the other day, do you know, even my father hasn't got a YouTube account. I don't think my mum does. I don't even think my brother does. They watch them, but they don't even subscribe. So please, if you know people who would enjoy it, or even if they don't enjoy it or they don't, I don't really care. Just get on your phone, set them an account up, and get it to subscribe. It just helps with the algorithms and things. But just let us know what you think. I mean, to us, to be fair, we do this all the time. Every Monday, don't we, Mike, about this time? If it's the uploading and stuff's fine, then from my point of view, it makes no odds us doing it live or not. So, yeah, let us know what you guys think, really.
Exactly. And the other thing as well is we put these features onto the pod. Let us know which ones you enjoy, don't enjoy, because, we do this for ourselves. We also do it for you guys as well. And we don't want to be doing stuff that you don't enjoy and you might fast forward, switch off with. But we appreciate the comments that people have put on. And Goober says, Mark and Mike, did you like the interaction today? Yes, we did. It's great because we see you commenting on the stuff below the videos. We see you on X, Instagram, obviously TikTok, and we do appreciate all the interaction. It makes our week, but we have enjoyed it, guys, and hopefully we will be celebrating a return to domestic football next week with a win against Portsmouth. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.